The discovery. The cold wind howled through the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains as Dr. Ethan Cole adjusted his thermal jacket. He glanced at his team, 5 dedicated scientists and explorers who had followed him into this frozen wilderness. Their mission was clear: to investigate unusual seismic activity detected beneath the glacier, an anomaly that defied all geological explanations. "Stay close," Ethan called out, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. "The readings are strongest just ahead." The group trudged through the thick snow, their boots crunching with each step. At the front, Maria Alvarez, the expedition's technician, held a handheld scanner. The device emitted a series of beeps that grew faster as they approached the anomaly. "We're close," Maria confirmed, her voice tinged with excitement. "Whatever's causing this disturbance is right below us." The team reached a flat, icy expanse where the snow seemed unnaturally smooth. Ethan knelt and brushed away the snow, revealing a patch of glimmering, translucent ice. Beneath it, something metallic reflected the dim sunlight. "What is that?" muttered Durek, the team's engineer, as he squinted at the strange object. "It's not natural," Ethan said, his voice low. "Looks like some kind of structure." Maria adjusted her scanner and frowned. "This isn't just rock or debris. It's giving off electromagnetic readings, way stronger than anything normal." "Let's dig," Ethan decided, grabbing an ice pick from his pack. The others followed suit, using their tools to chip away at the ice. With every strike, more of the metallic surface came into view. It was smooth, with intricate patterns etched into its surface, lines and symbols that seemed almost alive. Hours passed as the team worked tirelessly, uncovering what appeared to be the hull of a massive ship. Its sleek design and alien material left no doubt. This was not from Earth. "This has to be a crashed spacecraft," Ethan whispered, awe in his voice. "But how long has it been here? And why hasn't anyone found it before?" The team exchanged uneasy glances. The ship was buried deep under centuries of ice, far from any human settlements. Its discovery felt both miraculous and ominous. As they cleared more ice, Maria's scanner began to beep erratically. She stared at the screen, her eyes widening. "There's something inside." Ethan turned to her sharply. "What do you mean?" "Life signs," Maria said, her voice trembling. "Weak, but they're there. Something, or someone, is still alive in there." The team froze, their tools forgotten. The idea of encountering an alien life form was thrilling and terrifying. Ethan's mind raced. If this was true, it could be the most significant discovery in human history. "We need to get inside," he said finally. "Derek, can you find a way to open it?" Derek nodded, though his hand shook as he examined the ship's surface. After a few moments, he found a faint seam in the hull. Using a portable cutting tool, he carefully carved an opening. A rush of freezing air escaped as the ship's interior was exposed. The team peered inside, their headlamps illuminating a strange and eerie scene. The walls of the ship were lined with glowing symbols, pulsing faintly like a dying heartbeat. Wires and conduits dangled from the ceiling, and a faint hum resonated through the air. At the center of the chamber was a cylindrical pod, surrounded by shattered glass and twisted metal. Inside the pod lay a figure, a woman, or at least something resembling one. Her skin was a shimmering blue, her hair like silver threads, and her closed eyes glowed faintly beneath her eyelids. Ethan stepped closer, his breath catching in his throat. "She's beautiful." "Careful," Maria warned. "We don't know what she is, or if she's dangerous." The pod's lights flickered as if responding to their presence. The alien woman remained still, her body encased in what looked like a layer of translucent gel. A faint mist swirled around her, giving her an ethereal appearance. "We can't leave her here," Ethan said, his voice firm. "If she's alive, we have to help her." "Help her? Are you crazy?" Derek snapped. "We don't know anything about her. What if she's hostile?" "We have to try," Ethan insisted. This is a sentient being. If we abandon her, we're no better than the ones who shot this ship down, assuming that's what happened. Reluctantly, the team agreed. Maria connected her scanner to the pod, trying to stabilize its failing systems. Meanwhile, Ethan studied the alien woman, marveling at the sheer improbability of her existence. As the team worked, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The ship trembled, and chunks of ice fell from the ceiling. "What was that?" Derek asked, his voice tense. "The ship's destabilizing," Maria said, panic creeping into her tone. "We don't have much time." Ethan made a decision. "Get her out of the pod. We're taking her with us." Maria hesitated but finally pressed a sequence of buttons on the pod's control panel. The gel surrounding the alien woman began to dissolve, and her body sagged slightly as if released from a deep sleep. Then her eyes snapped open. They glowed with an otherworldly light, and for a moment, no one moved. The alien woman looked around, her gaze sharp and filled with something Ethan couldn't quite name. Fear, confusion, or maybe desperation. Before anyone could react, the rumbling grew louder, and the ship tilted violently. "Move," Ethan shouted. "We have to get out of here." The team scrambled to escape, carrying the alien woman out into the blinding snow. Behind them, the ship groaned and began to collapse, disappearing into the icy depths. As they reached safety, Ethan looked back, his heart pounding. The alien woman was alive, and the ship was gone. But this was only the beginning. The awakening. The alien woman's eyes snapped open as if a switch had been flipped. For a moment, the team stood frozen, their breaths visible in the icy air. Her glowing, luminescent eyes scanned the faces before her, pupils shifting like liquid galaxies. She seemed both terrified and calculating, her chest rising and falling as if she had just learned how to breathe again. Dr. Ethan Cole raised a cautious hand. "It's okay. You're safe." Her gaze locked onto him, and she uttered a sound, sharp, guttural, and entirely incomprehensible. The language was unlike anything Ethan had ever heard, a blend of musical tones and harsh consonants that seemed to echo in their heads long after the words had stopped. "Maria," Ethan whispered, not breaking eye contact with the alien. "What's her condition?" Maria, still clutching her scanner, fumbled with the device. "Her vitals are stabilizing. Heart rate, oxygen levels, body temperature. It's like she's adapting to Earth's atmosphere in real time." The alien woman suddenly flinched, her head snapping toward the collapsed ice where her ship had been buried. Her hands, long, slender, and slightly translucent, pressed against the snow as if searching for stability. The glowing symbols etched into her skin flickered erratically, pulsing like a broken signal. "She's scared," Ethan said softly. He knelt, lowering himself to her eye level. "We're not here to hurt you." The alien tilted her head, observing him with an unsettling intensity. Then, as if mimicking his movements, she reached out a trembling hand and touched his chest. The coldness of her fingers pierced through his jacket, but Ethan stayed still. Her expression shifted, her brows furrowing as she seemed to process something. Suddenly, the earth beneath them trembled. A deep, resonating hum filled the air, the same sound they had heard inside the ship but louder now, almost deafening. The team staggered, and Maria cried out, "It's not coming from the ship anymore. It's coming from her." The alien woman recoiled, clutching her head as the symbols on her skin burned brightly. She shouted again in her alien tongue, this time with desperation. Ethan didn't need a translator to understand. She was warning them. "She's trying to tell us something," he said urgently. "We need to figure it out." Before anyone could respond, the ice around them cracked violently, sending spiderweb fractures in all directions. Derek shouted, "We have to move. Now." But the alien woman suddenly thrust her hand forward, palm glowing with an intense white light. A barrier of energy erupted around the group, stabilizing the ground beneath their feet. The tremors ceased, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. The team stared at her in shock. Ethan, his heart pounding, spoke carefully. "You saved us." The alien woman seemed to understand, though her eyes remained wary. She pointed toward the horizon, where the mountains loomed like silent sentinels. Her lips moved, forming words that came out broken but recognizable. "They come," she said, her voice like wind chimes caught in a storm. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Who comes?" The alien didn't answer. Instead, she collapsed into the snow, her energy spent. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, her fragile frame surprisingly light. "What the hell was that?" Derek demanded, his voice shaking. She just stopped an earthquake with her hand. "And now she's talking about something coming." Ethan looked down at the unconscious alien woman in his arms. Whatever, or whoever, she was, one thing was clear. Her arrival wasn't just an accident. Something bigger was unfolding, something far beyond their understanding. "We need to get her to the base," Ethan said firmly. "If she knows what's coming, we have to find out. Our survival might depend on it." The team hesitated but eventually nodded. Together, they carried the alien woman through the relentless snowstorm, their minds racing with questions and fears. Behind them, the faint hum of the ship's wreckage lingered in the air, as if watching them leave. And far in the distance, hidden by the swirling snow, a pair of glowing red lights blinked in unison. They weren't alone anymore. First contact. A blizzard raged outside the mountain base, its howling winds battering the reinforced walls. Inside, the air was thick with tension as the alien woman sat upright on a makeshift cot, her glowing eyes darting between the unfamiliar faces around her. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as if every motion required careful calculation. Dr. Ethan Cole stood at a safe distance, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Can you understand me?" he asked cautiously. The alien woman tilted her head, the glowing symbols on her skin flickering faintly. She didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on his lips, as though trying to decode the sounds he made. She pointed at him, then at her own throat, and let out a melodic series of sounds that seemed more like music than speech. Maria Alvarez stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. "I'm running her vocal patterns through a translator, but her language doesn't match anything in our database. It's completely alien." "She's trying," Ethan said, taking a cautious step closer. "We just need to give her time." The alien woman raised her hand, and for a moment, the team froze. Her fingers moved in a fluid, almost hypnotic pattern, tracing glowing symbols in the air. The symbols hovered for a second before dissolving into tiny sparks. The room grew quiet, everyone mesmerized by the display. "What is she doing?" Derek muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think she's trying to communicate," Ethan replied. "It's a language, but not one we understand." The alien woman suddenly reached out and touched Maria's tablet. Her fingers glided across the screen with uncanny precision, rearranging the letters and symbols into something new. After a few seconds, a single word appeared in bold text. "Lyra." "That must be her name," Ethan said, his excitement breaking through the tension. He pointed to himself and said, "Ethan." Lyra watched him closely, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. She hesitated, then pointed to him and repeated, "Ethan." A collective gasp filled the room. She had learned his name, proof that she was adapting. "Okay, this is progress," Maria said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and wonder. "She's not just intelligent, she's advanced." Lyra's gaze shifted to the window, where the snowstorm roared on. Her expression darkened, and she began speaking rapidly in her alien tongue, her voice rising in urgency. She pointed outside, then back at herself, her gestures frantic. "She's trying to warn us about something," Ethan said. "Maria, can you make sense of any of this?" Maria shook her head, her eyes glued to the tablet as it struggled to keep up with Lyra's speech. "I'm trying, but her syntax is all over the place. It's like she's using fragments of our language to explain something huge. Lyra abruptly stopped and closed her eyes. The glowing symbols on her skin brightened, casting eerie shadows on the walls. When she opened her eyes again, she uttered a single word in perfect, haunting English. Containment. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Containment? What does that mean? Lyra pointed at herself, then at the direction of the shipwreck, her gestures sharp and deliberate. She mimicked an explosion with her hands and shook her head violently, as if to say, "This shouldn't have happened." She's saying the crash wasn't just an accident. Ethan realized. There was something contained on that ship. Something dangerous. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Derek's voice broke the silence. If she's talking about the ship's containment, does that mean whatever was inside is loose now? Before anyone could answer, the base lights flickered, plunging them into momentary darkness. A low, mechanical hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. "Is it the storm?" Maria asked, her voice shaking. Lyra stood suddenly, her movements swift and purposeful. She pointed to the door, then pressed her glowing hand against her chest. Her expression was clear. She was pleading. "She wants us to let her help," Ethan said. "Help with what?" Derek snapped. "We don't even know what's out there." Before Ethan could respond, a deafening crash echoed through the base. Something, or someone, was trying to break in. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She raised her hands, and the symbols on her skin flared like fire. "Whatever it is," Ethan said, grabbing a flashlight, "we're about to find out." The team braced themselves as the door shuddered under the force of another impact. Lyra turned to Ethan and uttered one final word in a voice that sent chills through the room. "Run." The threat. The sound of the base's metal door buckling echoed through the dimly lit room, silencing any argument about what to do next. A heavy, deliberate clang followed, each strike more forceful than the last. The team instinctively backed away, their eyes darting between the trembling door and Lyra, who stood motionless in the center of the room. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the entrance, her hands raised slightly, fingers twitching as the symbols on her skin began to pulse rhythmically. It wasn't fear they saw in her expression. It was determination. "Ethan," Maria whispered, clutching her tablet like a shield. "What if this is what she was warning us about?" Another deafening crash interrupted, followed by the screech of twisting metal. A moment later, the door was ripped open, revealing the silhouettes of two towering figures. They stepped forward, their movements unnaturally smooth, almost mechanical. "Drones," Derek muttered, his voice trembling. But alien. The intruders were sleek, humanoid constructs, their exoskeletons glinting with an iridescent sheen. Their heads were featureless, except for a single, pulsating red eye in the center of their metallic faces. As they advanced, the low hum of their cores filled the room, vibrating in the team's chests like a warning bell. Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between the humans and the drones. She raised her hands, and the symbols on her body burned brighter, casting strange, dancing shadows on the walls. The drones stopped, their heads tilting in unison as if scanning her. "She knows them," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Or they know her." One of the drones emitted a series of sharp, crackling sounds, a language as alien as Lyra's, but harsher, more robotic. Lyra responded in kind, her voice steady, but filled with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. It wasn't hard to guess. She was trying to reason with them. "It's not working," Maria said nervously. "Look at them. They're powering up." Indeed, the drone's red eyes began to glow brighter, and their metallic arms unfolded, revealing weapons that seemed to hum with lethal energy. Lyra's tone shifted, her voice rising in urgency. Whatever she was saying, it was clear she was pleading with them to stop. Then, without warning, one of the drones fired. A beam of searing red energy shot toward Lyra, but she moved faster than anyone could have expected. With a sweeping motion, she conjured a shimmering barrier of light, deflecting the blast and sending it ricocheting into the ceiling. Sparks rained down as the room filled with the acrid smell of burning metal. "Move," Ethan shouted, pulling Maria toward the far corner as Derek scrambled for cover. Lyra didn't flinch. Instead, she lunged toward the nearest drone, her hands glowing with crackling blue energy. She struck its chest, and the construct staggered backward, sparks flying from the impact. The second drone turned its weapon toward her, but she spun with graceful precision, dodging the blast and retaliating with another surge of energy. "She's fighting them," Derek said in disbelief. "She's protecting us." Ethan watched in awe as Lyra engaged the drones, her movements a mix of raw power and alien elegance. But it wasn't a one-sided fight. The drones adapted quickly, their strikes becoming more coordinated, their weapons more precise. One caught her off guard, landing a blow that sent her skidding across the floor. "We have to help her," Ethan yelled, grabbing a metal pipe from a nearby shelf. He knew it was a pathetic weapon against such advanced technology, but he couldn't just stand by. "Are you insane?" Derek shouted. "They'll kill you." Before Ethan could respond, Lyra rose to her feet, her glowing eyes locking onto him. She shook her head firmly, her expression unmistakable. "Stay back." The drones pressed their attack, one firing another energy blast while the other closed in for a physical strike. Lyra dodged the beam and raised both hands, releasing a wave of energy that sent the advancing drone flying into the wall. The impact shattered its exoskeleton, and it collapsed in a heap of sparking wires. The second drone hesitated, its glowing eye flickering as it recalibrated. Lyra seized the moment, leaping onto its back with inhuman speed. She placed both hands on its head, her symbols glowing brighter than ever. A surge of blue light erupted from her palms, and the drone convulsed violently before collapsing into a lifeless heap. For a moment, there was silence, save for the faint hum of Lyra's fading energy. She staggered slightly, her glowing skin dimming as she turned to face the team. Her expression was a mix of exhaustion and urgency. What were they?" Maria asked, her voice shaking. Lyra pointed to the shattered drones, then to herself. She spoke slowly, her voice strained but clear enough to form the words. "They protect. Not me. Ship." Ethan's stomach sank as the realization hit him. They were containment drones. Their job was to guard whatever was in the ship. Maria's eyes widened. "But the ship's destroyed. Does that mean?" Lyra nodded grimly, her glowing eyes meeting Ethan's. She uttered one final word before collapsing into his arms. "Escaped. Trust and survival." The base was eerily quiet after the battle. The only sound the faint hum of the emergency lights struggling to keep the room illuminated. Lyra lay unconscious on a medical cot, her glowing skin dimmed to a pale blue, the once brilliant symbols on her body now faint and flickering. Dr. Ethan Cole sat beside her, staring at her still form, his mind racing with unanswered questions. Across the room, Maria Alvarez and Derek argued in hushed tones, their voices carrying an edge of panic. "This is insane," Derek hissed, pacing the floor. "We don't even know what she is, or what she's brought here. Those drones weren't after us. They were after her." Maria crossed her arms, her expression defiant. "She saved our lives, Derek. Twice. That has to count for something. Or she's leading us into something worse," Derek shot back. "What if she's not the victim here? What if she's the threat?" Ethan cleared his throat, silencing the argument. "Enough. We don't have time for this. She's trying to help us, and until I see evidence otherwise, we're going to trust her." As if on cue, Lyra stirred. Her glowing eyes fluttered open, and she winced, her hand moving to her side as if feeling the weight of exhaustion. Ethan leaned forward, his voice soft. "Lyra, can you hear me?" She nodded weakly, her eyes scanning the room before landing on Ethan. Slowly, she sat up, her movements deliberate and careful. "Danger. she said, her voice barely above a whisper. More. Coming. What's coming? Ethan asked, his tone urgent. The drones. Something else. Lyra hesitated, her gaze distant as if replaying a memory. She pointed to herself, then to the direction of the shipwreck. Containment. Failed. Prison. Open. Prison. Maria repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. Are you saying this ship was a prison transport? Lyra nodded, her expression heavy with guilt. 1. Escaped. Dangerous. It. Feed. Grow. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. What does it feed on? Life, Lyra said, her voice trembling. Energy. It consume. Derek cursed under his breath, shaking his head. This just keeps getting better. So what? Some alien predator is loose on Earth, and we're supposed to trust her to fix it. She's our only chance, Ethan snapped, his patience wearing thin. He turned back to Lyra. Do you know how to stop it? Lyra's glowing eyes met his, filled with both determination and sorrow. Need. Device. Ship. Core. The ship's destroyed, Maria said, her brow furrowed. How can we get anything from it now? Lyra shook her head, raising a trembling hand to mimic an explosion. Not all gone. Core. Deep. Still. Work. Ethan glanced at the others. If there's even a chance she's right, we have to try. Derek threw up his hands. You're seriously suggesting we go back to that wreckage? After everything that just happened, what other choice do we have? Ethan shot back. If what escaped from that ship is as dangerous as she says, it won't stop until it's consumed everything in its path. Maria stepped forward, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. He's right. If there's a way to stop this, we have to take it. Derek sighed, his shoulders slumping. Fine, but if this goes sideways, don't say I didn't warn you. Lyra struggled to her feet, her movements unsteady but resolute. Ethan reached out to steady her, but she waved him off, her glowing eyes filled with determination. I go. You're in no condition to. Ethan began, but Lyra interrupted him with a single word. Must. There was no arguing with her tone. Ethan nodded reluctantly. All right, but you're not going alone. We'll go together. Lyra tilted her head, studying him for a moment before giving a small, almost imperceptible nod. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his chest. When she pulled back, a faint glow remained where her hand had touched. What was that? Maria asked, staring at the faint light on Ethan's chest. Protection, Lyra said simply. Help. Against it. Ethan didn't fully understand, but he trusted her. He turned to the others. Pack what you can. We leave in 10. As the team scrambled to gather supplies, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger than any of them could comprehend. But one thing was clear. Whatever lay ahead, they wouldn't face it alone. Outside, the storm had quieted, leaving the world eerily silent. And somewhere in the darkness, the escaped entity was growing stronger. The final stand. The sky was a bruised shade of gray as the team reached the edge of the shipwreck. The once buried alien craft now jutted out from the ice like a broken tooth, its sleek design marred by jagged edges and cracks that hissed with escaping steam. The cold was biting, but it wasn't the frigid air that sent shivers down their spines. It was the unsettling silence. Ethan Cole tightened his grip on the makeshift weapon in his hand. A modified welding torch turned into a crude plasma cutter. Lyra walked ahead of him, her glowing skin a faint beacon in the murky twilight. Her movements were slower than before, each step deliberate, as though she were conserving every ounce of her strength. She's getting weaker, Maria whispered to Ethan, her voice barely audible over the crunch of snow beneath their boots. I don't think she can handle another fight like the last one. She doesn't have to, Ethan replied, his jaw set. We'll protect her this time. Derek snorted from behind. Protect her. We're barely holding it together ourselves. And what happens when that thing comes for us? What's the plan, Ethan? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth was, they were walking into the unknown with no guarantees of survival. But if they didn't act, the thing that escaped the ship would destroy everything, and not just them. Lyra stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. The team froze, their breaths visible in the icy air. She pointed to the ship, her glowing eyes narrowing. "Here," she said softly. "Core, beneath it wake." Maria frowned. "The ship's core is still active. How is that even possible after the crash?" Lyra turned to face them, her expression grave. "Core, self-repair, emergency. Containment breached. Core unstable." Ethan's heart sank. "If it's unstable, how do we use it to stop that thing?" Lyra reached into the folds of her tattered uniform and pulled out a small, crystalline device. It shimmered with a faint blue light, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols that adorned her skin. "Core, amplify this," she explained, her voice weak but steady. "It trap, destroy." Derek raised an eyebrow. "So, what? We just plug that thing in and hope for the best?" Lyra shook her head. "Not simple. Core guarded. It no." Maria's eyes widened. "You mean the entity is guarding the core? It knows we're here?" As if in answer, a low, guttural growl echoed through the icy ravine. The team turned in unison, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. The sound was unlike anything they'd heard before, deep, resonant, and vibrating with malice. "It's here," Ethan said grimly. "Everyone stay close." The growl grew louder, and the ice beneath their feet began to tremble. From the shadows emerged a shape, shifting and amorphous. It glistened with a dark, oily sheen, its form constantly changing, limbs stretching and retracting, eyes appearing and disappearing. It was as if the creature couldn't decide what shape to take, feeding off the fear it inspired. Maria gasped. "It's evolving." Lyra stepped forward, her glowing body a stark contrast to the entity's darkness. She extended her hand, and the crystalline device began to pulse in response. The creature recoiled slightly, its shifting form vibrating with agitation. "Go," Lyra said firmly, her voice stronger than before. Hold it." "What?" Ethan protested. "You can't take that thing on by yourself." Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes meeting his. "No choice. Core. Close. You finish." Ethan hesitated, every instinct screaming at him not to leave her behind. But Lyra's expression was unyielding. She raised her free hand and pressed it against his chest, leaving behind another faint glow. "For strength," she said simply, "you need." Before he could argue, the creature lunged toward her, its amorphous form rippling with aggression. Lyra stood her ground, unleashing a blast of brilliant energy that struck the entity head-on. The impact sent shockwaves through the air, forcing the rest of the team to shield their eyes. "Go," Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Ethan grabbed Maria and Derek, pulling them toward the ship. "You heard her. Move." The team scrambled over the wreckage, their hearts pounding as Lyra's battle raged behind them. They'd reached an opening in the hull and descended into the icy darkness, guided only by the faint hum of the core deep below. The air grew warmer as they approached, the walls of the ship glowing faintly with alien energy. Finally, they reached the heart of the wreckage, a massive spherical chamber filled with intertwining conduits and pulsating light. At the center was the core, a swirling vortex of blue and white energy, contained within a crystalline casing. Maria stared at it in awe. This is incredible." "No time to admire it," Ethan said, pulling out the crystalline device Lyra had given them. "How do we activate it?" Maria examined the core, her eyes darting over the glowing symbols. "It looks like there's an input here. If we sync it with the device, it should." A deafening roar interrupted her, shaking the entire chamber. The creature had followed them, its shifting form squeezing through the ship's broken corridors. "It's not going to let us finish," Derek shouted. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we'll hold it off. Maria, get that thing connected. Derek with me." As the creature emerged, Ethan and Derek stood their ground, armed with nothing more than determination and makeshift weapons. The core's light grew brighter as Maria worked, but so did the creature's fury. The final stand had begun. Humanity's triumph. The air inside the ship's core chamber felt electric, charged with a volatile energy that prickled the skin. The swirling vortex of light at the heart of the alien reactor pulsed erratically, its rhythms echoing the frantic heartbeats of the humans who now stood between salvation and annihilation. Maria Alvarez's hands moved with precision as she connected the crystalline device Lyra had given them to the core's input panel. The glowing alien symbols on the device flickered and shifted, aligning themselves with the energy of the reactor. "Almost there," she muttered, her voice strained. "Just a few more seconds." "We might not have a few seconds," Derek shouted. He stood beside Ethan near the chamber's entrance, wielding a jagged metal rod he found in the wreckage. The amorphous entity loomed before them, its shifting form filling the corridor like a living shadow. It growled, a low, guttural sound that reverberated through the ship. Ethan took a step forward, his improvised plasma cutter sparking to life. "You want to get to her, you'll have to go through us." The creature hesitated, its countless eyes shifting to study him. Then, with a sudden, liquid motion, it lunged. Ethan swung the plasma cutter in an arc, its fiery edge slashing into the creature's mass. The entity recoiled, a terrible screech filling the air, but it reformed almost instantly, its body writhing with renewed aggression. "Ethan," Maria called from behind. "The device is sensing, but we need to stabilize the core, or it's going to overload." "Do it," Ethan yelled, blocking another strike from the entity. "We'll buy you time." Derek swung his makeshift weapon with all his strength, connecting with the creature's side. The impact sent a ripple through its form, but it only seemed to enrage it further. "This thing doesn't go down," Derek shouted. "It's like fighting a nightmare." The core's light grew brighter, casting harsh shadows across the chamber. Lyra appeared at the entrance, her glowing eyes burning like twin suns. She was battered, her movements unsteady, but her presence filled the room with a sudden, quiet power. "Lyra," Ethan called out, relief and urgency in his voice. "We need you." Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hands, and the symbols on her body flared to life. She stepped forward, placing herself between the entity and the humans. The creature paused, as if recognizing her. "You? No escape," Lyra said, her words halting but filled with resolve. "Contain. Here." The entity growled, its form rippling with defiance. It surged forward, but Lyra unleashed a wave of energy that stopped it in its tracks. The force of her attack sent shockwaves through the chamber, rattling the walls. Maria's voice cut through the chaos. "The core's ready, but the device needs a final charge to activate." Ethan turned to Lyra, realization dawning. "You have to power it, don't you?" Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes meeting his. There was no hesitation in her expression, only a quiet acceptance. "It need. All." "All." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You mean you?" Lyra nodded again, her lips curling into the faintest hint of a smile. "Your world. Worth." "No," Ethan said firmly. "There has to be another way." But Lyra stepped toward the core, her body glowing brighter with each step. The creature, sensing her intent, roared and lunged again. This time, it was Derek who intercepted it, slamming his weapon into its side. "Go," he shouted. "We'll hold it off." Lyra reached the core, placing her hands on its crystalline casing. The symbols on her body synchronized with the core's light, and the chamber was flooded with a blinding, pulsating energy. The entity shrieked, its form thrashing violently as if trying to resist. Maria screamed over the noise. It's working. The containment field is forming. Ethan rushed to Lyra's side, his heart hammering in his chest. You don't have to do this. There has to be another way. Lyra turned to him, her expression soft but resolute. I belong here, she said, her voice steady despite the pain etched across her face. You belong. Live. With one final surge, Lyra poured all her energy into the core. The light intensified, swallowing everything in its brilliance. The creature let out a final, terrible scream as it was pulled into the containment field, its form disintegrating into nothingness. When the light faded, the core was stable, its energy humming softly. The chamber was eerily quiet, and Lyra was gone. Ethan fell to his knees, his breath hitching. The faint glow on his chest, the mark Lyra had left, dimmed and disappeared. She saved us, Maria said, her voice breaking. She saved everything. Derek slumped against the wall, his face pale but determined. She was a better person than any of us, and she wasn't even human. Ethan stood slowly, his gaze fixed on the now stable core. She was more human than most, he said softly, and she trusted us to make her sacrifice mean something. As the team climbed out of the wreckage, the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds. The world felt still, as if holding its breath, and for the first time, Ethan felt not just grief, but hope, a hope Lyra had given them at the cost of her own life. Humanity had survived, and now it was up to them to prove they were worthy of her trust.